So we're going to start looking at CAD cleanup. So when we're talking about CAD cleanup, we're trying to sort all this vector data into usable lines. We have no text, but usable boundaries, things that make up our surface. So we're looking for existing contours, proposed contours. We're looking for delineated edges such as curb face, such as building lines. So we want to sort this data so we can get some usable information out of it. A lot of times when we bring in vector data, it is hard to clean up. In fact, there's a few things where occasionally I will not use vector data. I would just do what we call heads-up digitizing, or just trace over the PDF to get my contours and such. The reason I do is this is sometimes a mess. Now this drawing or this PDF comes in to our project, the data is fairly clean. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to walk through trying to clean this up, get some things sorted out, get our contours isolated, moved over to some layers or renamed layers, but we're going to try to clean it up. But I want to talk about a few things on the CAD portion. So a lot of things that people get hung up on is just drafting. So there's things in here that you need to do, and like join lines, extend trim lines, deleting line segments. And this isn't an activity. I just want to, you can watch this, but I want to talk about, I want to make a couple lines here. So I'm going to actually use them. I'm going to put them on one of our layers here, and I'm just going to make some lines. And CAD cleanup, and we're going to come back. Actually, there is another video for the line string editor, and definitely would be a good one to watch if you have access to it. So line string is a little bit cumbersome, can be in the beginning, but once you understand it, it's a pretty powerful tool. It can do a lot. There's a lot of things you can elevate, a lot of things you can do in the line string editor. So I want to talk about some CAD functions. So if you come over to the CAD tab and you look at this edit group, and again, this is where a lot of people, they just don't get, they kind of get hung up on the fact that you're trying to trim and extend, you're trying to break lines, and I just want to talk about how some of that stuff works. So if you have two lines, and let's say we're trying to make these lines look like a nice corner, so I'm going to draw another one. So I'm looking something like, say it's a corner of a parking lot, and it looks like this. So I'm looking for something like that. And a lot of CAD data and PDF data is worse, but I want to go ahead and get rid of this. It's not joined, so you've got gaps, and you're getting ready to see that. One of the locations I can show you right now is like on this curb face, which is a line we're going to try to isolate. Those two lines don't touch. They're not this at the same endpoint. Okay, so when you bring PDF vector, there's another one. So when you bring PDF vector data in, a lot of arcs get shifted, and it is hard to clean up. So we're going to talk about just some normal CAD functions. So if I'm trying to make a corner, you could sometimes, if I'm trying to join these two, if I want to make a corner, I could visualize it. You can actually click and drag these items out. I'm going to click here, I'm going to drag this one out. So you could do something like that. That makes a corner. I want to use the undo command. Undo again. You could also use trim and extend. So let's look at trim and extend. So if you go to the CAD tab, go to trim and extend, Trim and extend it's the command, and when I refer to a lot of these commands, I refer them to AutoCAD because that's kind of where I came from. But if I'm trying to extend these lines into each other, I want to leave it as default, so one line to a bounding line, and I want to extend. It's asking for the bounding line that you want to pick. So anytime you have this selection window, when you have that cursor focused and that cursor blinking in there, that's where the focus point is. It's asking for you to select an object. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick this line. Okay, so what I want to do is it's now asking for the line to trim or extend. So I actually want to extend this line to where it comes up and hits this one. So I'm going to click on it and watch what happens. Okay, that's good. So now I want to run it again, but I want to reverse it. So I'm going to come over here in the selection area, and I'm just going to pick this line. That makes that my bounding line. And then I want to pick on this one and extend it. Okay, so now I have a nice corner. All right, so let's trim and extend. And there are times when you do use that, and there are times when we could use the join command. So let's go to the join command. So under the CAD tab, under this grouping here, let's go to join. So join has some shortcomings as well. So sometimes you can join two lines if they are touching. So if these two lines were touching, let me actually redo this. Go back to where I just was. These are two entities. You'll see you can pick one, pick the other. If I want to join these two lines, it'll join because they have the exact same endpoint. Pick that one, pick that one. That's one entity. See, two lines have been joined. All right. So trim and extend and then join. So let's undo all that, and then let's go to the join command just at the beginning. Excuse me. So if you hit a join command with something like this, let's see what happens. So I'll pick this line, and I'll pick this line, and it says these lines are not at the same endpoint, and there's a distance between the endpoints. Let's go ahead and say yes. It just connects straight across. Okay, it's kind of not what we wanted, but in a case of maybe a takeoff, that might work. All right, so let's undo that. So there's another problem with the join command. If I am here at the baseline, and let's say I accidentally pick on, I'm in a hurry and I actually pick, this line has a percentage, you're on 50% this side, 50% this side. If I accidentally pick on this side, I'm in a hurry and I want to join it to this side, watch what happens here. Go ahead and say yes. So depending on what side, it joins across the wrong side. Okay. So there's a couple things you can do to minimize that, such as using the auto advanced. That's this auto advanced, and you'll see that here in a minute. But the join command in that regard is bad as well. Okay. So you could, another option I'll use a lot is this all selected lines down here at the bottom. So I may run this first, and you're going to see in a second in a PDF import of vector data, it doesn't do a whole lot. So the lines on a PDF vector import they're just not lined up correctly. Endpoints are shifted a little bit. Okay. So there is another command that I use a lot, and under the CAD tab, under this edit group, and that's the fillet chamfer. Now the fillet chamfer you can use by picking two lines, and then you can tell it to make a corner, make it a radius corner. So if I use this and I pick here and I pick here, you can see it extends the two and puts in a 32.808. That's just the default radius. Well, you can put the radius of 0. And what that does, hit the tab once so it comes off that focus, you see it makes a corner. Okay, so there's a lot of times I do use fillet, or you could use chamfer at a 0. I'll use fillet at a 0 radius, and it makes a good corner. Okay, now this fillet chamfer command, you do have to hit apply to hold it, but once you do, you have a single entity. Okay, so fillet chamfer is a great way to make a corner. And you know, if we are doing this for data prep, this is a must for me in data prep. Maybe not so much in takeoff because you're trying to get the takeoff done quickly. Accuracy could go out the window a little bit. You know, you're just trying to get a good number, and a little corner like this isn't going to adjust that number all that much. But in a data prep world, this is important. And also in a data prep world, you got to think if this was a curb line and that curb line was going to like a curb machine, I don't want to have little segments that are gapped, and so you want to make sure these corners are nice and neat when you're doing something like that. Okay, so let's talk about another command. Let's talk about the break command. So the problem with the break command in here, and I see what a lot of people do, is they think they want to break it. Let's say we're going to break this back at the corner here. Okay, this is one entity. So if I pick on it, it's one item. So what a lot of people do in cases is they have a tendency to not get on the corner, or you know, they don't, if they're breaking something, they may break it. And if you want it broke at the corner, a couple things you got to pay attention to. So let's go to the break command, and I'd already had it selected, but you had picked the line. Now you can see the rubber band is actually following along the line, so it's asking for the distance at which you want it to break. All right, so TBC has the grip or the O-snap visual indicator where it's going to snap. So if I'm coming along here, you can see that square up here on this corner is green. Okay, so when that is green, it's not going to snap. You'll see it's got a green at both ends. So if I move down this line, if I pick anywhere now, it's just going to go where my rubber band or where that line perpendicular to the segment is. Okay, so if I click there, I broke it right there. That's not what I wanted. I want it broke right here. So I want to undo, and I'm going to do this again. If you're watching and I move closer to that endpoint, closer to the endpoint, at some point that green is going to turn orange. What that means, it's going to snap to that point. That point is not in my center box or my pick box or center crosshair, but when it turns orange, that means it's going to snap to it. So as long as I get that orange picture, I just broke it right there at that corner. Okay, so if I'm trying to break things and trying to find corners, I want to be specific on where I want to break it, and I want to make sure I'm paying attention to where that snap's going to snap to. Okay, and again, zoom is free. So if I'm trying to break something and I'm zoomed way out, I don't know where I am picking. Okay, so this one's quite obvious because it's on a large scale, but if I'm working over here in our data, zoom in and see where you're, so you can get close to that corner and then break it. Okay, so a couple other things I want to talk about with CAD, the CAD data. Let me close this. Is you do have some override snaps. So if I come over here and I pick on this, and we will use these from time to time, and I have a tendency to use them not thinking when I'm teaching. I usually do this and I forget to tell the person. You do have a running snap. So if you come down here to this S default, these are running snaps. So these display visual snap indicators, that's that green box, orange box I was just talking about. You can shut those on and off if you wish. But the order at which it snaps is right here. So all those boxes are how it snaps to an endpoint. So it's going to go to a point first. It's going to go snap to the endpoint second. And then you do have other options you can choose. It's going to choose a surface mesh third. And then it's going to choose a vector PDF node. And then it'll be a free pick. Okay. So sometimes you can come in here and you can pick certain ones. Like if you wanted to snap to a midpoint of a line, you could turn this on. All right. But I don't change this. And they did come up with this snap set feature. and it does have a option where you can save it, like you can just have free only or point only. And there are times, and you're probably going to see in this video, this series of videos, I will shut this vector PDF off once in a while. So I could have a snap set called vector PDF off, but what I find is to get here, click efficiency is what I call it. If I come down here and click this, click that, say okay, it's really no different than me jumping in here and changing that. So I can do the same amount of clicks just to shut that one off. So, but if I wanted to turn one of these on, I don't necessarily come in here and turn one on or off. If I want to snap to the midpoint of something, so let's say I want to break this line at the midpoint. So let's go back to the break command. So let's go CAD and let's go break. I want to pick on this line. Now what I want to do is I want to right click. And it gets a little stacked, so in distance along I want to right click on the screen. Okay. Now it says station from line snap, station from point. You know, I don't want to, all I want to do is a simple override to go midpoint. So I want to say station at point. Now it's asking for the point. If I right click again, I get all these snaps, and these snaps are a little more than what was in the snap window, but in this case I'm going to say midpoint, middle of segment. Okay, there's a lot more in here that you may use, and I'll use this as opposed to coming down here and selecting and turning it on. Now the end is already included, but I want middle of segment, and I'm going to touch. When I touch this line, you'll see a circle pop in at the midpoint. You pick it. You know, you don't have to be at the midpoint of the line. I'm going to pick here, and you'll see it broke at midpoint of that segment. Okay, now it's a little deeper, but if I'm trying to do a one-off, one thing, like, you know, sometimes I draw a line perpendicular to a line, or sometimes I'll draw a line at I'll break it at midpoint, or if I want to force it to go to an end point at a vertical node. Okay, we'll talk about that in the line string portion, but you can get it to snap to a vertical point as opposed to a horizontal point, and you'll see that later, but I'll use those from time to time. So again, you're going to right click, say okay here. You will right click, go station at point, and then now it's asking for what point do you want. Well, if you right click one more time, you get some of those object snaps. And like here's perpendicular to segment. You can go offset line, so if you had an alignment, you want to type in an override of a station offset. So it's kind of a couple steps to get there, but it does get you there. Okay, let's close out of this. I'm not sure if we want to. I think that'll cover everything for now as to what we want to do. So what I want to do now is I want to get rid of this. You didn't have to do that exercise. I was just trying to want to get rid of it. All right, so we're going to start sorting, and I use layer groups for all this sorting. So, and again, when you start thinking about takeoff, you want to think about the items you want to sort. You got existing contours, proposed contours, and those items are what makes up our surfaces. Okay, so anything we're going to elevate, I want to have I want to isolate it. I don't want all this mess. In fact, if I zoom in and look at the text, it's not really text. These are all individual lines. So text does not come through in our PDF import. Very rarely do you get text out of here. The leader line's not really a leader line. So there's some tools you can use for some of this. And if we had a CAD environment, it would work pretty good, but we don't have that in this case. So everything's just going to be done kind of manually. So first thing I want to do is I want to focus on getting our contours sorted. So I want to look at the existing contours. So I want to come up here and I want to pick, and it's this kind of this cyan greenish color. I want to pick on this existing contour, and I'm just going to do a property. So you can right click and say properties, And in the properties window, you can see it lists kind of what that is. It's a CAD polyline, and you think about contours are polylines. They usually would have one elevation. In this case, nothing is elevated. Okay, we're going to talk about elevation in the next video, but you can see what layer it's on. So we have a layer, and it's on an odd layer, V pavement striping, but it is part of the X survey. It typically means that's the topo or survey of the existing. So our contour is on an odd layer, but I just want to see what's on this layer by itself. So if you go to the View Filter Manager, and across the top of View Filter Manager, we use this far right advanced view filter setting in the first video, but if you go 3 from the right, there's a view only layers of selected objects. So you pick your object, 3 from the right on that icon, you can pick it, and what that does on the screen is it shuts everything off in the layer window, and it shows you just what's on that layer. Now this drawing is a pretty clean file. It is a clean in the fact that it does bring in the engineering layers. So if you come over here to the layer window and hit the plus, you can see the PDF, and then it actually has given us the information of what layers the engineer or whoever drew this, and it transferred over in the PDF. That is not always the case. A lot of times you'll see PDF line work, color, magenta. So it may have something sorted by color and pin thickness. Okay, that's just the way it translates it back through to a vector data. In this case, it did retain the PDF layers, the native PDF layers. And if you remember correctly, if you go to Project Explorer, when we did that import vector, you don't have to do this, we already did it. When we did this import vector PDF to get here, we told it to preserve native PDF layers. Okay, they actually come through on this file. So how I'm going to do it is I'm going to come back out, and I'm going to pick one of those items, and I'm going to go back to properties. In that properties window, you see the layer, and you see the layer group underneath it. Well, I'm going to move that over to our existing group. So I'm going to hit the down arrow there, take it to existing, hit enter. Okay, now if I pick and it deselects, all right, so we haven't talked about selection sets, but if you pick one item, you see down here it has a one item selected down here. So a lot of times I'll look down here, or I'll glance down here and notice how many items are selected. If I pick another item, you'll see that it deselects that previous one and selects the next one. So if you're using the pick box, you only get one item to select. If I hold the control key down on my keyboard and pick multiple items, you'll see you can add multiples to a selection set. All right, so selection set's a bad term. All we're doing is picking. You can save a selection set, which I don't use hardly anymore, but if I pick an item and hold control key down, I can select multiple items. If I want to deselect one, still holding the control key down, I can come over and pick one, and it deselects it. Okay, so if you're using just the normal keyboard, you can hold the control key down and pick items off the screen. Okay, so what I want to do is let's go over here to the View Filter Manager and look what happens. So I'm going to hit the minus next to plus, and you'll see hit the plus next to the existing grade header group, there's that layer. So what it did is it moved that layer from the layers group to the existing group that we created. Okay, and not always, but this PDF vector import was pretty clean. The only thing I have on this layer is contours. So that's not always the case. Sometimes we have to pick certain items and move them back, or we'll pick all our existing contours and relayer. In this case, what I want to do is I'm just going to rename this layer. Since it's only contours, I'm just going to double click in the View Filter Manager and say existing contours. Again, that's not always the case. Some PDFs are different. This one is, again, only the existing contours are on this layer. So if I had some other stuff, I need to remove it. So let's go ahead and shut that off, and then let's come back up here and hit the plus or check in front of layers. And anytime you have that bold check, again, it means all layers are on. If I uncheck one layer, you'll see how that's light gray now. So if you have all layers on, it should be bold. If you have a certain one shut off, it'll be grayed out, but it's still a check. Okay. So I want to have everything on. Now I want to focus on the proposed contours. I'm just trying to clean up our map here, figure out what I want. Let's zoom into the same round area up on that northwest corner of the file. Let's pick on one of those proposed contours. When you pick something and you get a window like this, what that's saying is there's two items there. So if I try to pick here, there's some text and two lines. I want to get there's 3 or 4 different items. So it says, which one do you want? Okay. Now I want, if I click there without picking the text label or what supposedly should be a text label, there's 2 items here, and this CAD file actually had some surface contours. There was a duplicate files or duplicate lines, and I want to use the top one. So I'm going to choose that C topo, and I want to do the same thing. I want to right click and say properties. Now that PDF C topo, I want to go to View Filter Manager. Third from the right on that icon at the top, I want to hit View Only Layers of Selected Objects. If I zoom out, again, that looks real clean. That is just my PDF data of the proposed contours. So that looks like a good clean file. Again, sometimes you have miscellaneous items floating around. So I want to click one, go back to properties, and I want to change that layer group. I want to move that over proposed. Hit enter. So I just reorganized our layer group. So again, we'll come back to View Filter Manager, hit the plus minus in front of layers, plus minus on existing, hit the plus in proposed, and you'll see I just have that one layer on. And if you double click it, I want to say proposed contours. Hit enter. Alright, so now we have existing contours and proposed contours. We'll go ahead and shut that off, and then let's turn all layers on. Now, right now I'm looking for the items that make up our grade. We pulled our contours out. I want to focus on these spot detail or spot grades. This isn't text, but I want to see where that detail's coming. So that is giving me pavement grade. And in those cases, you would want to look at your PDF, and in the legend it usually will tell you, if it gives a spot label, it'll say it's at pavement grade or top of curb grade. In this case, these are pavement grade. So that means if this is our entrance, it's focused on the grade inside here, and that's what I always want to use. So I'm actually going to come here and I'm going to find that face of curb. So I'm going to pick on one of these lines that is the face of curb. So when you have a curb set, we have the edge of metal or edge of pavement. You'd have a curb face. That could be the gutter, and sometimes you'll see another line that has gutter and then face a curb where it's laid back about an inch, and then you'll have back a curb. But I want that face of curb line. We only have 3 here, so I want that face of curb line. And let's go isolate it and see what it looks like. So View Filter Manager, third from the right, I want to isolate it. And because I did do this file, that actually is a very clean set of curb lines. Okay, it's not always that nice and neat. This file was. So this is my curb face. So I want to move that over to our proposed group. So I'm going to go to properties. I'm going to pick one of those lines, and then in the properties window under layer group, I'm going to hit the down arrow, move that to proposed. Okay. Hit enter. I want to go back to view filter manager, and I want to hit the plus in front of our proposed group. And you can see PDF X base parking curb face. Okay, so I'm actually going to call that, I'm going to double click on it. I want to say proposed curb face. Okay, so I'll just be specific, but I want to put proposed on it. So we're going to put these layers in the, when we start doing the takeoff, we want to categorize these. I want to know that that's some of my part of my proposed data. So we have curb face, we have proposed contours, and we have existing contours. Let's go find the back of curb. We're going to use that one as well. A couple of ways I do back of curb, but let's just find it anyway. So let's turn everything off in front of proposed. So we're going to uncheck it so there's nothing there. I want to check in front of layers. And then I want to find, you can see I shut it off so our face is not there, but I want to pick on this greenish line, do a properties. And that's on an odd layer too, but let's see what it looks like. So let's go to view filter manager at the very top, third from the right, and I want to isolate it. Yeah, so that is striping. Let's turn everything back on. Let's go back over here where there is no striping. And so if you zoom into this upper left corner, northwest quadrant, pick on that bluish line and do a properties. There we go. That is our curb back. That's what I want. So again, I zoomed in up here on this northwest quadrant and pick there. I want to move that data. First off, let's look at it. Let's go to view filter manager and let's look at it. Okay, it does look like it is curb back. It actually looks like that is a delineated curb in the middle. Okay, yeah, I want to look at that. So it looks like it's a paint stripe as well. So there is no curb there. There is a curb set there. So what that means is there is some miscellaneous data on this. We don't need that. It's not delineating anything, but we do want this. So this curb back has some areas where you don't have curb. It's just not a clean line because you can see some of that was on paint striping. Let's leave that off for now. Let's not move that over. So I'll show you another way to do that. So let's turn everything on again. I don't think there's anything else. There is some stuff we're going to pull off the PDF, such as these ridge lines, but we'll use the PDF for that because it's easier and quicker. And there is some areas that delineate, like the concrete area and standard asphalt, but we're going to do that off the PDF as well. Okay, so I think for now let's shut off the layers. Let's turn on our proposed group, and then on the proposed group, actually we got to find the building, so let's shut this off. Let's go turn everything layers on. I want the building outline. So if I zoom in around the building perimeter, there usually is a boundary line. Yeah, there. So if I zoom in around the building outline here and I pick, it says there's two items here, and I want to use the C building one. So I'm going to pick it, and then I'm going to do our view filter manager, isolate objects, isolate only layers of selected objects. Now that's actually good. So that pulled out our building line, and that pulled out our dumpster pad area. So I don't want all these doors and stuff because what I want is just a delineated edge so I can put my finished floor elevation in. I don't know if this has special elevation yet, but I do want to delineate it for a different type because the dumpster pad has a different subgrade thickness. So if I pick here on this building, I can see it does pick an overall outline. That is all I need, okay? This other stuff does not have any bearing on the takeoff, so I can actually get rid of these doors, and these are just some window, probably some sort of overhang or something to delineate a window. So it's a good time to talk about selection by window, okay? So if you come over here to the right and I drag from right to left, you can see that it does a shaded box and a dashed line. So if I go in and I only select half this building pad, you'll see it'll select the entire building pad and it selects the items up here, but it didn't select the items down here. So anything that type of window touches, that's called a crossing window, it'll select, okay? If I do that from the left side to the right, you'll notice you get the gray box, but it does not have a dashed line. If I select here, you'll see it selects the items that I would want to remove, and it doesn't select the overall building. And that's what I wanted, okay? So there's a couple ways you can do this. We could select and then hit delete. And then I could select some in the lower half. You'll notice I'm not encompassing the entire building. And then I could come up at the very top. The very top in the quick toolbar is the delete button. So now all I have on the screen is my building pad. Or we could do it this way. I want to undo. You could select all this right here. Hold the control key down and pick where you know you're selecting that outer building frame, the closed boundary, and then hit delete, okay? That was just a good way to show you how the windows work. So what you should have left up here is just one boundary. Now, this dumpster pad's a little different because if you pick, there is no one boundary, it's just multiple lines. But we do have a closed entity that we can do by doing that method we just did. I'm going to select it all. I'm going to hold my control key down, and now I'm going to deselect the outer limits, and then I'm going to come up here and hit this delete button. Not worried about that stairwell pad. All I'm more interested in is to delineate the outer limits. So that was a ramp up. So now I have some entities here, and you'll notice one's closed, supposedly closed. And how you can tell if you pick on that item and do a properties window, you can come over here. If you have a closed item and you do a properties, it will give you the area of it, okay? So you can actually get an area of an object if it is closed. All right, now if I did it here, these aren't closed entities, right? So this is going to be the first case where I want to try to use the join command. So let's go to CAD, let's go to join. I don't need to join all these, but I want to come down here. I want to do all selected lines. And I want to do a crossing window here. So I'm going to use all selected lines, and then I'm going to select just by window all of them and say join. It says 4 lines support joining. 4 lines were joined into 1 line segment. Okay, and then I'm going to close this. So that join did work because they were all touching, and if I click on it, I do get an area. So I have that area of that dumpster pad, but I mainly wanted to join it, right? So I'm going to click on one of those items. I'm going to change that over to our proposed group under properties. And if I click here, I'm going to rename it. I'm going to double click on the layer and say proposed building pad. Hit enter. Okay. All right, so now I have proposed building pad, proposed contours, and proposed curb face. Okay, so I want to talk about the curb face next. So let's uncheck everything under proposed group and just have that curb face. So I already talked about that and I showed it earlier, but if you zoom in on some of these radiuses, when you bring vector data in, curves typically bulge out or in. You'll see the endpoints don't match. So we need this to match. I need this to be a closed entity. So when we start doing our subgrade depths, I need all this to join and be closed entities so I can have a closed area or a potential closed area so that it drops my subgrade area down. Okay, and plus when we elevate based off spot grades, I don't want to have all these individual segments. I want it to be a nice long continuous run that I can elevate without hitting each one separately. All right, so we're going to try the join command on this one. Let's go to the CAD and let's go join and let's do all selected lines, and I'm going to do a crossing window, so I'm going to select it all and say join. So 91 lines support joining, 6 lines joined into 3 line strings. So it did do a little joining. So let's close, but we still have a lot that it didn't do. All right, and I knew it wouldn't because you can see these items are not exactly endpoint. Okay, so there's a couple things we have to talk about. So if I was going to do this, first off, probably a vector PDF would not be my first choice if I was going to do a model for a machine or a field use. But for a takeoff, I'm not necessarily going to say it's negative to join across. It does create some problems, but if we're trying to get a takeoff to get a quick number, it does come down to you have to make an assumption. You have to move one corner to the other. So if I wanted to, I could go through all these and I could drag and use these grips, and I could snap these together. And so I could walk all the way through this. And again, you're moving the location of the line, but again, you have to you're saying, yeah, I'm doing a takeoff, I'm okay with that. All right, or we might force it to close. And how you can force it to close is just, you need to know that when you push 2 lines together, what's going to happen here. If you remember how the join command works, let's go to CAD, join, and if I pick this line and I pick this line, it's going to give you that warning where they overlap, but watch what happens. So it'll have a tendency to try to clean up. So if I pick here and pick this one, it tries to clean up that location. If they're not, if they're not joined and they're not overlapped, you'll get something like this, but it'll join this way. Okay, so their join does have a little bit of smarts. It's not completely correct because you can see that one, it does jump across. This one here is going to go jagged. Okay, but again, what we're saying is I may be okay with that in this case because I'm just trying to do a takeoff. I want to get this edge delineated quickly. All right, so what I'm going to do when I'm joining in this case, I'm going to turn this auto advance button on. So what this auto advance button on is it doesn't jump back and forth. I like this jump back and forth if I'm doing different types of lines join. In this case, I'm wanting to just be continuous. So it's okay to turn that auto advance on. I want to go over here and I'm going to pick our main line. It's going to turn red. And then I'm just going to, when it pops up as next window, I know I'm forcing it to close. So I'm going to go ahead and say, do not show me this again. And I'm just going to walk through, and you don't have to pick the previous one. You just kind of got to walk through and click on each line at the next line. Try not to pick at the intersection. It's okay to pick on this side, all right? Don't be way out here like this and pick here, because there's like 3 segments here. So use your zooms, but do not pick at the intersection. Kind of pick back behind where you want them to join. So you notice I'm not picking right where the red and purple meet. I'm picking back here a little bit. So I'm just kind of touching the next line, but I'm not picking at the intersection. It's a good way of, you definitely want to get out of the habit of doing that. Alright, so something like this too, when I'm done with it, I get that all joined. What I like to do is look at the properties of that and make sure that that did close. So that really didn't close. It looks like there is a little bit of a overlap, and it is. It's right here at the where I ended up. Alright, so there's a couple things you can do, and I don't like to use the auto close button, but if you click on that item and do a properties, you can actually tell it to auto close by saying yes, and that would create a boundary. A lot of times I'll just pick that, and I know the curve is usually the one that's off, and I'll drag that to match that endpoint, and there I have an area. All right, so if you get that area in the properties window, you know you've got a closed entity. Okay, so again, usually it is the arc that is off. The straight line segment is the correct function, and most 99.9% of the vector imports, the curves are bulging in or out. So what I want to do is I want to go around, I want to join all this curb. So I want to go to the join command. My auto advance is going to be on, so I'm going to go ahead and pick this first line, and then I'm just going to start walking through and picking. And when you get this overlap, just remember it'll kind of shift a little bit. And that one's join. So go around and join all those lines. And what I'm going to do, when I get done with that one, you need to be cautious. Don't just immediately jump over. Watch what happens. So if you come over here and you touch that next one, you just close that up. Okay, and we are going to close that up eventually, but I want to do it as a separate entity because you can see it really didn't join correctly. So you want to undo that. So just be cautious there. And actually there's another command. If I did join across here, close that out. So now I have accidentally closed that. There is another command under the CAD tab that is delete segment, and I use it quite a bit. So if I go delete line segment, it's under the CAD edit group. Once you find that area where you have, it's asking which segment, and if you get the green arrow, so you can see that green arrow, that means that that's the item it's going to delete. If I pick it, you'll see it'll remove that segment out. Okay, so we'll go back to join, and I'm going to start with this one and we'll walk through. So go around joining all those elements, and we're going to join those together. Once you have that, we'll pick back up on the next video and we'll start elevating. There'll have to be some CAD cleanup we'll do as we go, but we're going to start elevating items once we get all this curb face joined. So join all that curb face, and then we'll move on to the next video.